today's video is going to be a little bit more different, and I feel like some of the content on my channel may not so much change, but like there may be some more life serious subjects in it. I've recently, and I've literally just recorded the book review for it, so I will link that down below, recently just finished the memory book by Rowan Coleman, which is about a lady suffering from early onset Alzheimer's. And that got me thinking about doing a video on dementia and dementia awareness. So if you don't know, day to day for my job I work for Specsavers for their domiciliary service. So we go into a lot of care homes and people's homes to do sight tests for them if they can't get out to their local shop. And with that comes meeting a lot of very different people, including a large amount of them with dementia, from sort of the starting point of just being diagnosed to the very extreme where they're in nursing care, they can't eat for themselves, they can't get out of bed, things like that. So we see a very large spectrum. And I've also done a dementia awareness course as part of my apprenticeship, and that was really enlightening as well, and I will maybe talk a little bit about that. So before I start working with this job, I never had really any interaction with anyone with dementia. Thankfully, touch wood, no one in my family has suffered from it. Obviously everyone gets a bit forgetful, but never really experienced it before until I started working for Specsavers and in this like home visiting environment. And I remember like the first couple of months I didn't know how to really deal. I'm going to be really honest here, I had no idea how to deal with people with dementia. You would have people come up to you and just start talking a load of nonsense really, and I had no idea what to do. I felt very awkward. I'm a very like socially awkward person anyway, and I find it hard to sort of talk to people. But I had no idea what to say back to them. I had no idea what to do. And then since going on this dementia aware course and just being like surrounded by these people more and more and seeing how my colleagues deal with it, I've sort of learnt from them, and sort of I'm more aware of the symptoms of dementia, why certain things happen, and how you can help them and interact with them. And I would really recommend, if you have the chance to go on a dementia course, please go on it. I just found it so enlightening, and it was just a really beneficial day, whether you're in an industry that would need to interact with people with dementia or not. I just thought it was really beneficial. So there are many things I could say about dementia, and there is many types of different dementia. I really should get my notebook. Hold on, it's here. This is actually my notebook for work, but it has some of my dementia awareness course notes in it, so I might just have a little look-see at that. Dementia is basically an umbrella term for memory loss, which it affects obviously your memory, but also your ability to communicate and the different functionings of your body. I won't go in too much in depth about the different types of dementia, because dementia is an umbrella term, like I said, and there are different types of it. They all slightly affect the brain and the body in different ways, and it would make this video like an hour long probably. So Alzheimer's is probably the most well known, but there's also like vascular dementia, Lewy bodies dementia. I mean, if you went online you could find a ton from it, and I'm sure like the Alzheimer's Society, and there are a ton of dementia websites out there with information if you're just curious. But obviously dementia is such a wide subject, and I don't quite know where to start or what to talk to you about really. And I could probably do like a tips video on dealing with dementia, but I wouldn't say I'm like an expert on knowing how to deal with people with it. Everyone is different. That is the thing you've got to learn. As a whole, it mainly affects the short-term memory. That's why a lot of advanced stages dementia, people revert back to when they're children. We see a lot of elderly women in care homes who are cradling toy babies, and that's because they've obviously reverted back to when they were younger and have children, and they're looking after this baby who they believe is real, and you just have to go with it. A lot of, with dementia and people suffering through it, you just have to go with what they're saying. Just agree to it, because in the long run it could confuse them even more, and if you disagree with them and try and tell them the right thing, it could in the long term deteriorate them even more. We had someone who had a family member in a care home, and they really liked it there, and then they were moved, and not only did the move upset them, but also they just weren't being cared for as well in this new care home, and they deteriorated really badly and eventually passed away. So being able to keep them in the same environment for as long as possible is a really great thing, and just to keep consistency and to try not overwhelm or confuse them too much. So we do get a lot of people saying, oh, like, is my brother coming? Is my brother? No, repetition is a big thing. You have to sort of repeat things to them a lot, and they will ask you a lot of questions, usually multiple times. You do get one side of dementia, which I think is pretty funny working in the industry we work in. And at the end of the day, in our shoes, sometimes we have to laugh about it, because we're not laughing at the person, we're laughing at what the disease can do to people. And if we don't laugh, it would be a very saddening job. We meet so many lovely, lovely people with dementia or without, and sometimes you'll get these, like, we had this one really, really sweet lady. We really thought she was like all together up there. She was very, very convincing, and then when we said to her, like, who deals with your finances, she was like, my mother, and she was 90, and me and my colleague just looked at each other and was like, bless her, because she was so convincing, yet she still thinks her mother's alive. And it is really sad, and there's very humbling moments in this job, and there are times where, like, for me personally now, I am so scared of either me or a family member getting dementia. Just the fear of either personally myself not knowing who people are in my life, but also people, like, if Darren forgot who I was, that would be devastating, or if my parents forget who I am. It's just awful, and you see that in these care homes. You see family members come up to them and then they're like, who are you? And it's like, oh, I'm your son. And you hear about it all the time, and you know about dementia and that it's memory loss, but it's not until you see it firsthand that it is really heartbreaking. And with all the research that they've done, you really think they would have, like, made a cure or prolonged it. Obviously there are drugs that can prolong the progression of dementia, but it's nothing as near as what maybe we'll have in like 30-50 years. And hopefully one day when we get to that age, maybe they would have found a cure for it. But like I said, until then, it's sort of trying to deal with the people in your life that have dementia and knowing how to make life as easy for them as possible. Because I work with dementia quite a lot, it's a subject that really intrigues me, and I have just finished reading the memory book, which is about a woman suffering with early onset Alzheimer's. I will link the book review that I've just done of it down below. There is also a really good documentary by Louis Theroux. It's on Netflix, and he goes into different care homes and people's houses and sees firsthand people with dementia and Alzheimer's, and how their families and other halves are dealing with it. And I would really recommend you go check that out, because it's a very insightful documentary. It's only maybe like 40-50 minutes long, but it is really good. I feel like there's so much that I want to say in this video, and it's sort of a bit all over the place, so just bear with me. But really this video is just like a topic of discussion. I'd really love to get some audience interaction in with this video. If you've had anyone in your family with dementia or Alzheimer's, just leave a comment down below. You can share as little or as much as you want. It is a really sort of open place where no one's gonna judge you. and I just really like to hear people's stories and how they've dealt with it, or if they've never come across it before, what their thoughts are on it. Dementia is sort of one of those things that everyone has heard the term thrown around, but sometimes we don't always actually know about it. And it wasn't until I went on that dementia course that I knew that there was like, I didn't realise it was more than just dementia and Alzheimer's, that there was other ones like vascular dementia and Lewy bodies, and how they all affect the brain differently. So one of the things I want to talk about, obviously I work with glasses, I'm in the optical sort of industry. Believe it or not, you may or may not know, dementia does affect your vision. They lose a lot of the peripheral vision, so sort of around here and also sort of like right in front of them here. So sometimes, especially we found in care homes and things like that, they can't see their plates of food, and so you may go up to them and be like, why aren't you eating your food? And the simple fact is they didn't realise it was there. They can't see it, and sometimes just having like their food maybe a bit further away from them, or just letting them know that it's there and that you're there to sort of help them, can help. And reading glasses and near vision glasses are really good for that, because it can help them magnify what they see around them, because they've sort of lost that sort of peripheral vision. Is one story that my colleague told me, and they went into a care home and there was this little dementia woman sat in her chair. Apparently she never did anything, she never talked to anyone, she just sat there. And we offer everyone an eye test, we treat everyone the same. Everyone deserves to have their sight tested, and everyone deserves to have glasses if they need them. And we are very fortunate that there's like an NHS scheme where if you're on benefits and things like that, you can get help towards your glasses. But anyway, and there was this little woman there, and they tested her eyes, and she was like, I'm gonna get these this woman a free pair of glasses from the NHS, and they gave them to her. And when they went back 2 weeks later to fit them for her and put them on her, she, like, her face just lit up, and she was running around the room touching everything because she could see everything. And although this is maybe more to do with like the optical side of things rather than the dementia topic, it just really humbled me that everyone, even if they have dementia, there's still a person in there. They're not just an empty body. It's not like they've lost everything between their ears. There is someone there, even if they can't communicate it anymore. Obviously there's still a lot we probably don't know about dementia and Alzheimer's, and that is why they need funding to research it even more. Another thing that dementia can affect with your eyesight is it can give you something called motion blindness. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes here from my course. It can give you something called motion blindness, where if you imagine a film in slow motion, but parts of the film cell have been dropped out. So you'll blink 1 minute and someone will be here, you blink 1 minute and someone will be here, you blink another minute and they'll be here. Rather than it being like a smooth flow, it's like jumping all around. And that's what dementia can do. It's something to do with the cells, like the nerves, and basically that bit being missing in the brain. And yeah, so also depth perception can be affected. They might not know where to put the cup of tea down on the table and miss it and drop it. And also different colours and different patterns and surfaces can affect people with dementia. So if something is on a cushion and they can't see it, it may be because the colours are too similar. The very patterned carpet, they may just see the shapes and think that maybe the square shapes are islands and the blue bit of the carpet is the water, and they can't step on that bit. And it does things that we would never imagine it would be able to affect. We simply just think it is memory loss. But it can also, in a way, sort of warp things in their mind and make them associate things with something else that we usually wouldn't associate it with. So we have two parts of our brain, and you sort of have to look at them like two bookcases, and this is how it's described to me on my course. You have the one bookcase, which is pretty flimsy, and this has got books on it sort of about your events, like when you went to the seaside, or when you went to the dentist, or when you went to school for the first time, things like that. And it's like your life on a very sort of flimsy bookcase, and that's the hippocampus in your brain. And so if that was knocked, you would lose all the sort of books from the top where it's less stable, which would be all your more short-term events, and then towards the bottom, like your first day at school, having a fight with a sibling, that would all still be at the bottom where it's more stable. And then on the other side, you've got the amygdala bookcase, which is much more stable and what stays with you, and that is all the different emotions that you associate with these events. So you may have going to the seaside and being happy, and on the flimsy bookcase you may not remember the seaside, but you remember the happiness of that time. And that's what happens, is a lot of people associate events and things with emotions, and even though they might not be able to remember what that event is or what happened, they can remember the emotion that went with it. So if if you visited them and you had an argument with them, and then you went and saw them maybe a couple years later, they can probably remember that negative feeling but not remember why it happened. Or they may remember that happy feeling if you took them out for the day but not remember what actually happened on that day. So emotions do play a big part into dementia, and that's why it's key to keep things constant and avoid confusion wherever possible. I'm not an expert on dementia, I just feel like I've got a lot of experience on it. I've obviously encountered it quite a lot over the past 5-6 months. So yeah, but basically everyone who suffers with it, like any condition or disease, is different. It affects everyone differently. It's a case-by-case study really, and there is so much information out there, so many important websites and things that I will link down below. I'm not really asking you to like go and donate to a certain charity or anything, or go out and like volunteer at a local nursing home, but just to be aware that dementia is out there. And if you work in a shop, for instance, and someone comes up and they're looking a bit unsure of how to pay, and you may be thinking, come on, I finish in 10 minutes, you know, hurry up and just count your change. They might physically just see the coins, but there's this like fog that they have no idea what to do with them. So you may need to help them. It's just different things like that, different life skills, and just knowing more about the disease can help in sort of day-to-day life. Or if you ever happen to come across someone in your work, or if your family member ends up getting it, it's better to be prepared and to know and look out for the signs really. So I hope you've somehow gained maybe some knowledge. I feel like I've been talking a lot and maybe not any of this made sense, but it's really, I feel really passionate about this and about this topic, and it's just something that I wanted to just sit down and make a video of. Sometimes I find the most impulsive videos are the best. So leave me a comment down below on your thoughts on dementia, and I will be happy to reply to any comments, and I'd love to just hear anything you've got to say surrounding this topic. And yeah, I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.